Hey flower farmers, now's the time of year that we're putting our gardens to rest, and today we're going to talk about 5 pieces of equipment to make that job easier. This week we spent a couple of days out at Thomas Family Farms in Delta County, Texas, helping them get ready for next spring. And we wanted to share with you 5 tools that we use during those sessions that's going to help them grow better next year. Those tools are sharp pruners, low tunnel supplies, drip irrigation, silage tarps, and then trays and labels. Why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below, because in the next video we're going to be talking about some of the activities that we did with these tools on the farm that week. So running a flower farm is no small task. Between planting and maintaining healthy beds and harvesting, the tools you use can make or break your success. The wrong tools can lead to damaged plants, inefficiencies, and wasted time and effort. But the right ones, they'll save you hours of work, help your blooms thrive, keep things healthy, and so we'll get into it with the pruners. We recently started carrying these different pruners for the farm. They're made in the Netherlands, and we have both economic and premium lines of cutters. Here, Farmer Emily is cutting back her eucalyptus to make room for some new growth next spring. The fall is a great time to cut back some of that excess summer growth and drive that energy back down into the root system for the winter. Next up is low tunnel supplies. Now, we put up a lot of low tunnels this week, and we got a lot of fabric ready to cover for some of the upcoming frost. Let's take a look at some of those individual components. Number 1, the hoop bender. We bent a lot of 4-foot hoops in both 1/2 inch for some of the low tunnels and 3/4 inch for some of these perennial covers. And for both the low tunnels and that perennial tent, we use snap clamps, both in 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch. And to hold down the frost blanket when not in use, and to help close up some of the ends on the low tunnels and the perennial covers, and to hold down the silage tarp as it gets the soil ready for next spring. We used 1.5 ounce and 4 ounce frost blankets. We also have it at 2.5 inch, depending on your needs. And if you want to take a look at more information on low tunnels and frost blankets, we have a whole series of videos that walks you through the step-by-step process of making the low tunnels and using the frost blankets, both in a single and multi-layers. The next thing that we used a lot of this week is irrigation supplies. Emily had the sprinkler going, and we also dealt with a lot of drip irrigation. So we're using some of the overhead irrigation for the transplants that have little tiny root zones that haven't spread out yet to use drip irrigation. But then we did check the lines to make sure that the irrigation that's going to feed those plants as those root systems develop are there and running. Now, a little tip for the fall, you still need to make sure that the soil is moist, although well drained, because what we don't want is to have a bunch of water pooling up and freezing and causing further damage. Furthermore, you might want to make sure that your lines are easily purged and cleaned out before any frost, just so we don't have any ice buildup in the systems to break the pipe. But you still need irrigation this time of year. Up next, silage tarp. Putting down the silage tarp this time of year means that the ground cover that they put in last fall has a place to break down and put energy and nutrients back into that soil. That silage tarp is going to keep the weeds suppressed and help that soil not erode until it's ready to uncover in the spring and to plant the new crops of transplants. Which brings us to our next topic, trays and labels. We seeded several flats that day. That's going to be the future blooms that we plant under cover as the winter progresses and as the flower successions change. These are also some of the plants that are going to go in that need to overwinter in order to bloom early on in the spring. So in this case, we used a 72, a 50, and a 128, and a 200 cell tray for different varieties as we needed different sizes. Now, if you're a smaller farmer, you might want to consider using the 6 cells. That way, if you don't have to plant a whole bunch of any one thing, you can plant just little plots for your raised beds or for your container gardens. A 10 by 10 tray will hold 6, and a 10 by 20 will hold 12 to still give you 72, but of different varieties that you can always color code with some of the different colors. Just some tips, as we are changing out some of the shade cloth for frost blankets, we can use the same tote to store these different agricultural covers, as well as store the snap clamps in case we have some extras or in case we don't want to lose those over the course of the fall. The other tip I have is right before you need to prune, go ahead and sharpen your tools. There's a whole lot of videos showing you, and everybody has their different ways. I like to use these whetstones in different grits. So I'll start off pretty coarse and work my way up to a medium and a fine grit. After I get them sharpened, I'll sterilize those with a little bit of alcohol and just put a little drop of oil onto the hinges and the springs, and that way they're always ready to go, and I don't have to worry about any rusting or anything like that. Now, I like to do it after the fact, so they're always ready to go and always ready to be sharpened, and store them in a location that they're not going to be prone to a lot of humidity or anything like that. So I like to keep mine inside. This is also a good time of year to refreshen up some of the mulch. If you're in and out of your walkways, you're going to notice divots and spots where Either the dirt eroded or sometimes you pull a little bit too much dirt out during a harvest. This is a time to help rebuild the soil, rebuild and keep those walkways dry, and add some mulch as you go. This is a great time of year to do that while you're raking out and cleaning up your beds. So we're going to talk a lot more about that in the next video, in which we're kind of winterizing the farm and putting the farm to rest so we can plan for next spring and have a fresh start. By investing in these tools, you're going to make your job easier and your farm healthier by having nice clean cut, nice healthy roots, and nice protected rows with the frost blanket and the low cone tunnels that you can also use next summer with the shade cloth. And of course, you're always going to need irrigation on the farm. So take stock. If you don't have some of these items, now's the time to go ahead and pick those up. They also make for great Christmas gifts because who doesn't need another pair of pruners? If you're looking for more tips or how-tos, watch our video on frost blankets, and don't forget to subscribe and share your favorite farm tools in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.